on to Collaboration Design for the Future, SharePoint Server 2016. My name is Matilda Miller. I'm a Senior 2 consultant here at FMT, specializing in enterprise content management, which includes but is not limited to information governance, information architecture, and automated business processes. I've been with FMT for a little over a year now. I came here from Georgia, but I'm a Philadelphia native, so fly Eagles fly. Now, the agenda for today. So today we're going to discuss new and improved features and UI enhancements in SharePoint 2016, as well as discuss the collaborative cloud hybrid experience. We're also going to review that new farm topology. We're going to cover governance, improved document management, as well as eDiscovery search and data loss prevention. Now, before we get into that, I kind of want to get a feel for the people that are in the room. So I had a quick question for all of you guys. I just wanted to know what kind of SharePoint user are you? Are you guys mostly, are you end users, a power user, a technical administrator, or have you ever used SharePoint at all? I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to answer. Now, just so you know, an end user is someone who, just casually uses SharePoint to interact with it. A power user is someone that would be more of an administrator of sorts. They create content types, or they deal with data a little differently. A technical administrator would be someone who's more so in IT and does administration to the farm. And of course, someone who's never used SharePoint is a person that's never touched it. Okay guys, I'm going to go ahead and close that out. It looks like right now we have 10% of us are end users. There's another 10% that are power users. The majority of us are technical administrators, okay, and about 20% of us have never used SharePoint at all. Okay, that's no problem. We definitely have content to cover all of those bases. So right now, so inside of SharePoint right now, so we're going to be talking about these new and improved features and UI enhancements. So the SharePoint Server 2016 has 3 focus areas. The first focus area is improve user experiences. So this time around, Microsoft really listened to the feedback of the end user concerning ease of use. And the second focus area is cloud-inspired infrastructure. Now, as we all know, the future of SharePoint is going to be both cloud first and mobile first. And then thirdly, SharePoint focused on compliance and reporting. And these new features that we're going to go over, as well as the enhancements, are going to reflect all 3 of those focal areas. So let's start out with hybrid cloud search. Now, this is a big one, essentially because people are having more hybrid environments these days, which means that they are partially on-premise and partially in the cloud. And search has been a big factor with that. So hybrid search makes content finding easy. If there's an environment in which content and applications are spread across both on-prem and Office 365, the hybrid search is what pulls everything together. So hybrid search is based on indexing on-premise content in Office 365. Now, if any of you guys have dealt with the previous versions of SharePoint, you'll know that, say, in a 2013 hybrid scenario, you can enable searching of both on-premise content from Office 365, or you can search it from on-prem. However, in that scenario, the indexes are still separate from each other, and when you search, they are treated as separate. In the new 2016 solution, you can now create a true hybrid index that combines search results from both from Office 365 and SharePoint, and it's all done in one single index, so there's no more separation there. Now the application launcher. So remember that SharePoint is now cloud first. So everything that happens on the cloud then trickles down to what happens to on-prem. So in 2016, they introduced the same UI changes to reflect the look and feel of Office 365. So you'll see here that in addition to that, there's also the app launcher that you're used to seeing in Office 365, which is a new navigation feature that was added to allow users ease of use getting to personal files as well as navigating through the site. Now, compliance tools. So SharePoint 2016 includes data security controls so that only authorized people can access specified data. It also allows document deletion centers to preserve items in SharePoint and OneDrive for a fixed period of time, as well as manage policies that control the deletion of documents. So your organization may be required to retain documents for a period of time because of compliance, or maybe it's legal or another business requirement. However, if your organization keeps documents longer than required, you can create unnecessary legal risk. With a document deletion policy, you can proactively reduce risk by deleting documents in a site after a specific period of time. For example, so say you need to delete documents after 3 years. You can do this automatically with a deletion policy. So you can set up a rule that goes ahead and goes into every user's OneDrive for Business site and deletes documents that are older than 3 years. Now, document deletion policies are both powerful and flexible. So for instance, you could go ahead and you could enforce a single mandatory policy on all sites in the site collection, such as all OneDrive for Business sites, or even enforce a policy on all site collections created from a specific site collection template, such as a team site template. You could also provide a default policy with a default rule that will be automatically applied without any action required by site owners, or you could allow site owners to choose from policies that you centrally create and manage. You can also allow site owners to opt out altogether if they decide a policy does not apply to their content, or you could create a policy that includes several deletion rules that a site owner can choose. So you could either do this centrally, or you could place the power in the hands of the site owners. Now, site folders. So OneDrive for Business is becoming more similar to My Sites. The main purpose of site folders is to allow the user to navigate to files and libraries from a single portal. So instead of going to each individual site, the user can access all sites that they are following from one central location. Now, let's talk about improved provisioning capabilities for a second. So SharePoint 2016 is designed to help manage administrative tasks more efficiently by reducing the processing time of each individual task. So if you're like me and you're provisioning several sites, you'll understand how long the process can take at times. This is completely streamlined in the new SharePoint 2016. So it allows you to free up a lot more time to focus on other mission critical projects. Now, the mobile experience. So the mobile experience is a big one with SharePoint 2016. Now, if you guys have seen the mobile experience previously with other versions of SharePoint, while there is a mobile layout, it wasn't necessarily focused on touch. So a lot of times things could possibly be merged together, and sometimes there were formats that just did not render well without customization on your mobile device. So all of this changes inside of 2016. So the new update includes an improved mobile navigation experience. The touch-friendly experience incorporates industry standards for mobile push and information synchronization. It also empowers screen consistency across different devices, such as desktops or tablets or any other mobile device you could essentially think of. Now let's talk about that for a couple seconds. So in previous versions, the mobile experience did not place emphasis on touch at all, and some functionality was absolutely limited. You can now use your device to view information on sites. You can collaborate with colleagues. You can access shared documents and stay connected with your work using any mobile device that you have. This is especially important for companies that are now incorporating BYOD policies and don't necessarily customize their solutions. So in SharePoint 2016 mobile, you can do even more. So now you can view your documents that you've recently used in Word or PowerPoint or Excel, documents that are shared with you, and documents that you're following on SharePoint. You can also see a list of sites that you're following in SharePoint and sites that are promoted by the administrators. You can use navigation links to move from a site to OneDrive for Business or vice versa. And you can change the view. So you have both the classic view that'll look just like the layout that you have inside of SharePoint if you're on a desktop, as well as the PC view. I'm sorry, the PC view and the mobile view for some sites and libraries that you use in SharePoint. Now, Microsoft has also recently announced a new concept that they have, and they introduced the concept of documents finding you versus you finding documents through their unified access and intelligent discovery, which gives you the ability to easily create, manage, and collaborate on documents no matter what device you're using. So that hasn't been rolled out as of yet, but it's supposed to come out by end of year. File sharing. So file sharing now is a lot simpler and a lot quicker. So the file sharing experience has been revolutionized in the newest update. So to share files now, a user can simply select the file. You can just click the little checkbox to the left of the file, hit the share button that's in the top right of every screen, and then enter the names of the people that you'd like to share with. So now security and mechanism are no longer a concern here. It's a simple one click to go ahead and share documents. So file names with restrictions. File names with restrictions, so files that had characters like the ampersand or the tilde or the squiggly brackets or the GUIDs and dots weren't allowed in previous versions of SharePoint, and neither were file names longer than 128 characters. Now these restrictions have been removed in the new SharePoint 2016 version. File names were a major issue, especially for individuals that were migrating from file shares where such file names were accepted. And clients often had to go through the tedious task of renaming numerous documents. So that's no longer an issue with individuals who are now migrating to SharePoint 2016. Now, they also have updated increased file sizes. So SharePoint is now supporting uploads of file sizes that are larger than 2 gigabytes, but please keep in mind that Microsoft recommends uploading a max file size of 10 gigabytes to prevent chances of disconnecting or getting a timeout while uploading a file. They've also improved site creation, so the site creation process has really sped up with SharePoint 2016. A user can now create a site collection from a site template in just a few seconds. Now the major here, especially since I know inside of the room now we have more IT administrators here, we do have better uptime and performance now. So there are now fewer patches, and it also reduced the number of packages. So the number of 2 MSIs and 2 MSPs, and now there are just 1 per language pack. Patches also have a smaller footprint now, and SharePoint 2016 is offering zero downtime patching even in a production environment. SharePoint administrators who are managing SharePoint servers are facilitated because the number of packages is reduced. And secondly, downtime, which was previously required to update SharePoint servers, is also removed again. There is also a separate distributed cache server and improved distributed cache with reliability improvements to distributed cache. Now, do keep in mind that distributed cache still relies on the App Fabric 1.1 and will continue to be supported for SharePoint 2013 and 2016's life cycles. So, the collaborative cloud experience. So let's move on and take a look at what that piece looks like. So SharePoint Server 2016 opens up a new wealth of possibilities for hybrid scenarios, enabling you to work with SharePoint on-prem and online seamlessly. You can now follow sites in both SharePoint on-prem as well as online, and see all sites in a single consolidated list. With SharePoint 2016, you also have to maintain one Office 365 profile instead of using those two separate profiles for SharePoint Online and on-prem. Accordingly, one single OneDrive for business account in Office 365 can be used for both SharePoint Online and on-prem. Now, last but not least, you will be able to search for content in both SharePoint Online and on-prem and get those unified results that we spoke about earlier, because now everything is in that single search index. So just out of curiosity, I just wanted to know what type of environment you guys were using. So I'm going to launch it now. I just want to know whether or not you guys are on-prem, online, a hybrid, or you don't have SharePoint at all. Give you guys a couple more seconds here. Okay. I'm going to give it a few more seconds before I close it out. I see that 85% of you guys have voted. Okay. All right, so it looks like 18% of you guys are on-prem, 55% are online. Hooray, considering the fact that SharePoint is cloud first, and 27% don't have one, and no one has a hybrid solution. Okay. Okay, so let's get a little bit into the farm topology here. So in SharePoint 2016, Microsoft introduces the min-role farm topology. So let's go ahead and take a look here. So in 2016, you can go ahead and specify the role of a given server when setting up a server farm. The services get configured on each server based on that server role, so which helps to optimize the performance of the farm. There are 6 predefined server roles. They are the front end, application, distributed cache, search, custom, and single server farm. Now, user requests come from the front end server. Distributed caching happens on the distributed cache server. Scheduled tasks come from the application server, and the custom server role will run anything that you want. Now, just to be clear here, that new min-role topology requires the use of at least 4 server roles to make a farm. You need the front end, the distributed cache, the application, and the search. So again, you must specify the server role when adding the server in the server farm. If the financial investment for this doesn't make sense for your organization, you may want to consider the cloud. So let's talk about governance for a little second here. So a lot of times when I bring up governance, sometimes people are confused as to what that means, or if they do know what it means, they don't really think that their organization needs it. They think they can just build and move forward. But when you have an implementation, you want to make sure that it's regulated properly and that individuals are using the system the way you intended for them to use it. So let's start off with defining governance here. So governance is the set of policies, roles, responsibilities, and processes that control how an organization's business divisions and IT teams work together to achieve its goals. Every organization has unique needs and goals that influence how it approaches governance. So if you're a larger organization, and of course you'll probably require more and possibly more detailed governance than a smaller organization would. So governance in SharePoint 2016 includes 3 major areas. Each is equally important. So you have IT governance, you have information management, as well as application management. Successful IT governance has three essential elements. So you need a governance group, and a governance group defines the initial offerings of the service. It defines the service's ongoing policies. It meets regularly to evaluate success. You also want to make sure that you are communicating policies. So you need to ensure that the policies you develop are communicated to your enterprise and are enforced. And you also want to encourage use. So you want users to use the service and not create their own solutions. Now, the next piece that's highlighted in orange here is information management. Now, information management consists of information architecture, which determines how the information in a site or solution, things like documents, lists, data, etc., are organized and presented to the end user. And the next piece of information management is information access, which regulates permissions and audiences. So what are people allowed to do with this content, and who's allowed to see this content? And finally, application management. So application management determines how you will manage the applications that are developed for your environment, what customizations you allow in your applications, and processes for managing those applications. Now, here are a few of the planning best practices here. So an effective governance plan anticipates the needs and goals of your organization. Because every enterprise is unique, it is recommended that you tailor a governance plan to your environment by using the following steps. So the first thing that you want to do is determine initial principles and goals. So the governance committee that we talked about previously should develop a governance vision, policies, and standards that can be measured to track compliance and to quantify the benefit to your organization. For example, your plan should identify service delivery requirements for both technical and business aspects of your SharePoint deployment. The next is to classify your business information. So organize your information according to your existing taxonomy. So classify your information according to the existing categories that you have for documentation, or create a custom taxonomy that includes all the information that supports your business solution. After your information is organized, design an information architecture to manage it. Then determine the most appropriate IT services to support it. Third, which is the most important, I think, is to develop an education strategy. So the human element is, after the governance plan, the most important ingredient in the success or failure of a SharePoint deployment. A comprehensive training plan should show how to use the SharePoint according to your standards and practices that you're implementing, and explain why those standards and practices are important. So you have to be able to train people how to use the system that you created and explain to them why you created it this way and how it benefits your organization. Your plan should cover the kinds of training required for specific user groups and describe appropriate training tools. So remember earlier when we spoke about the different roles that there were, and I asked you guys what roles you guys play in SharePoint. So training is always geared toward the audience. So training for an end user, of course, would be different for a power user, and of course ultimately different for an IT administrator. So the training should always be geared toward your audience. For example, like your IT department could maintain a frequently asked questions section, or your business division might provide online training that shows how to set up and how to use document management. And lastly, we have an ongoing plan. So you have to have a plan on how things are going to go moving forward. So you want to develop an ongoing plan. Successful governance is ongoing, of course. The governance committee should meet regularly to review new requirements in the governance plan, reevaluate and adjust governance principles, and resolve conflicts among business divisions for IT resources. So just because you guys plan something initially in your governance plan, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will still apply years later. So you guys want to make sure that you're meeting regularly and seeing if your current governance plan still fits the needs of your organization. The committee should also provide regular reports to its executive sponsors to promote accountability and to help enforce compliance across your organization. So there's really no point in having a governance plan or a governance board if nothing is actually enforced. So if you have these rules but no one's following them, you know, what good are they? Now I know like it seems like a lot that goes into governance, but I think it's something that people often overlook that would greatly help their solution in the long run. Now, document management in this new version. So in this new version, document management has become much more user-centric. SharePoint has provided a lot of shortcuts and things are a lot more intuitive this time around. So document libraries have acquired the following new features. So now there are landmarks to a page, which make it easier to navigate. There are also keyboard shortcuts that you guys can see on the screen now. And you can use the keyboard shortcuts to do such things as create a new document or edit a document, as well as upload. There are also focus improvements, such as keeping focus on prior elements and focus trapping. There are announcements for upload progress when you guys are uploading documents. There are also announcements for file name and file types when browsing folder and file lists. There is improved callout rating, as well as updates to the help documentation that's available within SharePoint. Images and preview. So you can now preview images and videos in SharePoint libraries. In 2016, you can do this by simply hovering the mouse over the image or video or by clicking on those thumbnails. Now this helps end users ensure that they have found the right content before they go through the trouble of actually opening it. Simple control. So the simple control feature in SharePoint makes it easy to create new Office documents, as well as upload files, synchronize files for offline use, and share files. Now, in previous versions, some of these options were only available if you went inside of the ribbon and selected them, but now you can select them directly inside the library. Open document format. So this was another big one just because people don't always use the same products. So SharePoint Server 2016 adds support for open document format, files to use in document library templates. So you can set an open document format file as a default file template on inside of a library. This way when someone creates a new file in the library, the file opens and saves as an ODF. And people can use the program of their choice to go ahead and edit that file. So they're no longer, held to using one particular product. Right-click usage. So now inside of a library, you can use right-click usage in order to get to the options that you want. So in the current version, well, in 2013, in order to view the properties of a document, I had to click on the ellipsis to the right of the document, then I had to click on the second set of ellipses, and then click on the properties so I can view the properties of a document. In this new version in 2016, you can simply right-click on the document and you have access to the properties link and any other links that you would like to use. Also noteworthy, though I don't have it bulleted here, is the view threshold improvement made possible through auto-indexing. This will help users who have a library or a list that's above the 5,000 threshold limit. In SharePoint 2013, a user had to manually do this, like they had to manually do the indexing so that they could see things in the view. But now they don't have to do that. So if any of you have experienced it, you know that once you go above that 5,000 threshold limit, it seems as if nothing is in the library and you can't see anything. And the only way to change that is to index the view so that it could actually populate some content for you on the screen. Now with auto indexing, if you go above that threshold, it's automatically done for you. eDiscovery search and data loss prevention. So there have been some drastic improvements here concerning both of these. So let's take a second here. So eDiscovery and data loss prevention are two different things, but they do complement each other. So eDiscovery refers to any process in which electronic data is sought, located, secured, and searched with the intent of using it as evidence in a civil or criminal legal case. And data loss prevention, or DLP, is a strategy for making sure the end users do not send sensitive or critical information outside the corporate network. Now, having data loss prevention and policies in SharePoint now allows a business to build a DLP structure across both email and data, which is great news regardless of whether you're on-prem or you're in the cloud. It's worth noting that data loss prevention is very much a complement to your business's overall strategy with how to handle compliant and sensitive data within your SharePoint environment. DLP is in no way replacing your document lifecycle management process, but it is allowing your business to build a policy model to discover and protect data in a way previously not possible out of the box. Okay, so what's data loss prevention? Simply stated, again, DLP is a method to discover and restrict sensitive data from being let out of your company. Now this can be things, it can match certain criteria through defined industry standards and thus allowing you to avoid breaches for corporate data leaving. So this data could include things, say, like credit card details or passport numbers or even social security information. Now, DLP in 2016 and OneDrive for Business is now built into your existing enterprise search. It allows you to search for sensitive content in your existing eDiscovery Center, keeping content in place and enabling you to search in real time. Compliance can either enter simple or complex queries and program search to crawl a variety of sources, including team sites and users, OneDrive for Business folders. Once the query is run, the results appear under the SharePoint tab, where you can review them in place. You can simply adjust the query, adding index properties such as date or author to fine-tune your results. It is important to note that permission to use the eDiscovery Center is role protected to ensure that the right people, not everyone in the organization, has access to run these queries and review the sensitive content. Now you can leverage 51 built-in sensitive information types such as social security numbers, banking account numbers, etc. And export the list of offending documents for further review. So we're going to do a little eDiscovery demo here. So this is the new eDiscovery site collection. This is where you would start your eDiscovery hold. So the first step is to create a new eDiscovery set. So this screen appears after you select new item under the eDiscovery sets. So you want to go ahead and give the eDiscovery set a name, and then you want to click on sources. So you want to add and manage sources. So once you get to add and manage sources, you can see that a source could be anything from an Exchange mailbox, it could be a SharePoint site, it could be a folder, it could be essentially anything that is indexed in SharePoint search. So for this demo, we've named the set Wingtip Audit, and you can see the sources that we've selected here. So we've selected a few Exchange mailboxes as well as SharePoint, and you can see there that the in-place hold status is currently not on hold. It also gives us a tally of items there. So I can see that Sarah Davis has 5 items, Garth Fort has 17, and at the bottom it gives me a full tally of all items, as well as a column giving me the size of these items. So inside of the filter, I'm also filtering Wingtip. So this is a view of the initial results. So I could sit here and I could page through results. As you also see, I'm on the tab for Exchange, so these are my results in Exchange. There would also be results inside of SharePoint. So I could sit here, I could go through all of these results, or I have the option to filter even further. So here, I can see the name of it. I can see inside of a query here. So I can say, okay, I can do wingtip near 30. I can make it market or a campaign. I could also filter further. I could add in a start date as well as an end date. I could do the same inside of author or sender. I can still see my sources here. So now my sources are narrowing down more. So remember the total number was higher on the previous shot because I hadn't filtered down further. I can also get query statistics over here, and then you can see down here at the bottom that while I'm filtering further, I can see that my results are dwindling. Now once I found a result that I want, I found it in the form of an email. I found wingtip in here, so I can take this result here, or if you have Skype for Business, you could also check inside of there. So we could also search for wingtip inside of here. So these are just two different result types that I have. So with these results, again, I can go ahead and I can export them, or I can place them on hold. Now the key takeaways here for eDiscovery. So the capabilities are to be able to do an in-place hold. You can do a query, and then you can go ahead and you can export those results. Some of the advantages here are the in-place, again, the real-time review, and it's also rather simple. eDiscovery is more simplified. It allows you to save both time and money. It reduces risk, and you can search across multiple platforms. So you can go ahead and search across either Exchange or SharePoint, as well as Skype for Business, and files and shares on premises. So my screen is going off here. I see a few questions inside of here. Let me go through and see if I can see them, guys. Recommendations for using OneDrive for corporate purposes in conjunction with SharePoint, or better to use a company folder destination. I would use OneDrive for Business for files, so that way you could completely pull people off the file share. So a lot of times what individuals do is they'll have a local file share, and they'll also have SharePoint, and when they're working on their own content that they're just keeping it on their desktop, and they still have it in that file share. They're not making use of OneDrive for Business, so it's still cluttering up the file share, and then to a certain extent you're still going through those same issues. So people are still having those same folder and file structures, and they're not fully utilizing SharePoint. What are the enhancements and updates to the tools used for building workflows? So for workflows, actually, so SharePoint Designer, I know a lot of individuals are using SharePoint Designer. For workflows inside of the 2016 environment, SharePoint Designer is going away. So you would be doing it inside of, sorry, you would be doing development for that. They are talking about doing the app model as well for workflows, so that it'll be a lot simpler. So you wouldn't necessarily have to be a developer in order to do more complex workflows. Okay, those are the only two questions that I saw in there. I just wanted to make sure I took a second to answer those, guys. Now concerning eDiscovery both and governance, I did want to know how many of you out there were actually using governance plans. So I'm going to put that poll up now. Okay, guys, I'm at about 46% now for the governance vote. Okay, we're at 77%. Let me give it a couple more seconds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. So it looks like 80% of you guys are saying no and 20% of you are saying yes. I just want to again stress the point that having a governance plan is really important to consistency and continuity to an organization. So you should definitely consider it. So even if you have a smaller organization, to at least get some laid plans down so that you guys know how you want to proceed and then also how you want to maintain your environment. Now, why SharePoint 2016? So in addition to all of the new features and enhancements that we just reviewed, guys, it's important to remember that users had a voice in this version of SharePoint. So Microsoft has provided better boundaries and better management of on-prem solutions through min roles and distributed cache. In addition to that, online solutions are solid and require minimal IT upkeep. IT can shift from maintenance to value delivery very quickly. SharePoint is now cloud first and mobile first. All enhancements are online. And finally, on-prem solutions and hybrid solutions provide internal security, integration, as well as cloud functionality. I'm going to open up the floor now for more questions. Okay, I'm going to leave a little more time here for people to ask questions. Oh, okay. Oh, do you have a recommended file folder structure for a company wanting to create a comprehensive site, SOX, accounting, HIPAA, HR, etc.? So inside of SharePoint, I think it's always important to kind of stay away from that folder structure. That way you don't get back into that nested folder situation where it's hard for you to find content as well as filter and search it. I think it makes more sense to leave documents out in the open and then properly tag them using metadata. You can also create views if you have specific groupings that you need in order to find documents. But I would definitely stay away from that file folder structure. Sure. You can manage security. So the question is, can you manage security with the metadata without the folders? Yes, you can still manage security. So are you stating that you need security down to the document level, or so all of these options are going to be within the same library, and you're saying that different people don't need to see, I guess, HIPAA versus certain people needing to be able to see SOX documentation? So if the libraries are separate, ah, so groups of documents within the same library. So I would always go against placing permissions down to the document level just because it gets so granular. In that instance, I would separate content if I needed to separate permissions for that particular library. That way people who didn't have access to specific file types just wouldn't have access to that library. hmm So correct, some files would be available to all employees while HIPAA and some SOCs require selective permissions. Best way to do that. I mean, if you're keeping it minimal, then you can place it at the document level. But if it's something massive, so let's say you're inside of a library and there are hundreds of SOX files, then I would separate them out. Oh, okay, so I'm getting notifications. I have two more questions. Let me scroll up and try to find it, guys. Oh, so I see here, I have not started doing workflows, and SharePoint Designer is going away. What should we use? So they're saying that they're going to be creating an app model to replace that. And besides Nintex, there are also other tools such as K2 that you could use to create workflows. You could also do it in a .NET environment, so you could do it there as well programmatically. It's just that Nintex and K2 are a little more user-friendly, and they allow you to do more drag and drop functionality. Okay, if I wanted to do something similar to an access database in SharePoint? Is it just better? I'm sorry, is it just a matter of relating columns, or is there a separate best practice? So you could use a list for that, or you could simply you can actually use access directly inside of SharePoint. You can publish an access database inside of SharePoint instead of simply using a list. So it says, oh, does Microsoft have a target for the replacement? Well, right now they're stating that you should be using Visual Studio in order to create workflows. They haven't made any announcements beyond that. Okay, there's another question. It says, what do I need to do to prepare to migrate to SharePoint 2016? I'd say you need to determine if all of the content that you're preparing to migrate is actually being used. You don't want to migrate over any dead or old content that you're not using, so that way you don't clutter up the space. You also need to determine what access roles and permissions you have in place. They do need to be documented fully prior to you starting the migration. That's going to be a big part of your testing plan. Also, you need to determine how much downtime is the business willing to tolerate. So you need to determine how long it's going to take to do the migration, how long your business can be down, and how it's going to affect your day-to-day business. And then also determine if the migration can be done from your current version of SharePoint. So just like previously, if you were on an older version of SharePoint, so to make the jump from, say, SharePoint 2007 to 2013, you first had to make the jump to 2010. So you also want to ensure what your path is, whether or not you can do that migration in one hop, or see if you're going to require multiple hops. Okay, guys, I think I got all of the questions here. Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more left, sorry. It says, are there significant challenges moving an on-prem SharePoint 2016 server implementation to a full cloud implementation. No, so there is only one challenge, and that is that when you're on-prem, you're able to create customized solutions on the back end. That's something that you're not able to do inside of the cloud. So if you have any design modifications or any back-end programming, you're going to have to revise it to client-side programming if you're moving to the cloud. So that's one of the significant changes between the two. If there are no other questions beyond that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. No problem, John. You're welcome. I'd like to thank everyone for attending, and please note that we will be doing a live InVerge presentation in person coming soon in spring of 2017. If any of you have any follow-up questions that you weren't able to ask during the session today, or if you guys come up with anything else you want to ask me later on, please give me an email at mmiller@fmtconsultants.com.